So boom, welcome back people to another episode of Life, Death and Everything in Between. I'm your host Tristan, and alongside me once again is Davina. So today's topic is going to be a part 3 of the friendship series we've been doing, and today is about forgiveness. So a powerful topic, and you know, some of you lot, you got to forgive. So by God's grace, you're going to hear a few words that will inspire you to forgive whoever you need to forgive. Amen. So let's start.
Amen.
So why forgiveness? Why do we need to forgive? Because it's a lot easier to not forgive. And it got me thinking, like, what happens when we don't forgive? We get these feelings of anger, bitterness and regret for the past and what things that have happened that are now no longer in our control. And what I've noticed in my own life is that when I hold on to these feelings, it occupies a space, and then there's no longer the space for those feelings of love and joy. And the metaphor that I'd use is like, so say that there's a situation that's happened a long time ago and I keep ruminating on it. Anytime the thought of the event comes into mind, it's like poison in my well. And then I've got to take a couple days, a couple weeks to then shovel out the water again and then refill it up before I'm like good again. So the problem if you're not forgiving is that it poisons the well, and then you're finding yourself bitter about a situation that happened years ago. It's literally in the past and you're bitter about it now. It just doesn't logically make sense, and it's not helpful for your current self nor your future self. So I guess the question is to you, like, how significant do you find forgiveness, and how do you forgive people?
I think forgiveness is one of the most important things that we can learn to do, because obviously it's impossible to live a life where no one ever offends you, and it's impossible to live a life where you never offend anybody else. If everybody was unforgiving, like there'd be no possibility of any kind of normal relationship with anybody at all. But how I know earlier you said you don't want this to specifically be a faith-based one.
No,
but
flow, man.
Right, cool,
God is here. God is here.
Right, cool. So
People
obviously, like, it's a Sunday, we're about to go to church, we believe in the Lord, amen. So obviously, forgiveness is a massive part of being a Christian, obviously being a good person in general, but it's so heavily emphasized in the Christian faith within the Bible that obviously it's something that's very, very close to my heart, and something that I believe is essential for living a good life and for being at peace with yourself and with God. So like you were saying about how unforgiveness is like poisoning a well, there's a saying that says, you know, when you don't forgive someone, you're basically drinking poison. Like every time you let the thought of them anger you or drive you to feelings of anger and like resentment, it's not hurting them. They're not in the room with you while you're sitting there stewing over that thing that they did however long ago. Like, they've probably forgotten, and it's just you're just like stabbing yourself over and over and over and over and over and hurting yourself over and over and over again because you're refusing to forgive another person. To a degree, forgiveness is kind of selfish, because really you're releasing yourself from the burden of something else that somebody has done. You're allowing yourself to stop carrying the weight of a wrongdoing that somebody did to you way back, and you're allowing yourself to be free. So really you're doing yourself a favor. It almost has nothing to do with the other person, really. Whether what they did deserves forgiveness or not is irrelevant. What's important is that you can let it go so that you can move on and you can be happy and you can have that burden removed from you.
And that last bit about letting it go, because we hear it all the time, and it's kind of like a common thing in the self-help kind of area of the internet about letting go, but oftentimes people don't say how to let go. So I wrote a little something down about letting go, and I want to read it. So I said, how do we let go? Well, it starts by having a self-awareness of the negative thoughts and feelings that come up and not engaging with them, because they poison your reality. And I said, you can counteract when the feelings start to arise by breathing and letting them pass. And this is talking about mindfulness, right? And the metaphor that I'd use for mindfulness is like, okay, there's two that are in my head. Let me say this one. So, okay, we're outside now, the clouds. Imagine the clouds are like all the different thoughts within your mind. And then you see that like grey cloud, the grey clouds come in. And in a moment of time, it could be upon us. It could, take up the sky. We wouldn't see the sun anymore. When you engage with a negative thought, it's the same as like seeing the grey sky and being like, the sun's never going to come out again. But what mindfulness is just recognizing that, okay, the sky's gone grey, but it will pass. just like every other moment in my life, it will pass. Every thought, every feeling, every negativity inside of me, it will pass. There's, this is just a slice in time. That's why I always like to say to myself, whenever, times are hard or whatever it is, like, this is just a moment in time, in a collection of time, in an infinite amount of time. So that allows you to withdraw from your situation, withdraw from the feelings, withdraw from the intensity of it all, and just like allows you to be in this space where it's like, okay, you're not over the moon because the sky is grey, but you're not affected by the rain per se.
Yeah, I like that. And I especially like that bit you said about it being a slice of time. I think that's so important to keep in perspective. And for me personally, that's definitely what's more so in the back of my mind on a day-to-day basis, is because I suppose, like, on average, I don't get riled up very quickly by a lot of things in general anyway. So a lot of things do kind of pass over me or pass me by, and I don't tend to have much of a reaction. And I think that comes from just that knowledge of knowing that this is just a moment in my life. Like, it's a tiny sliver of my existence. I'm 22 right now in 2023, and one day, like, it's gonna be 2066, and I'll forget that random inconvenience that happened, like, do you know what I mean, 50 years ago or whatever, or 40 years ago, before someone calls me out on that maths. But it's like, these things aren't as significant as we make them out to be. And I love the metaphor that you gave about, like, it's like fixating on the one grey cloud in the sky and then believing that because that one grey cloud is present, the sun will never come out. Ultimately, it's totally irrational and just not true. So, yeah, bearing in mind that every single moment is passing, the good and the bad, because we all have we have inbuilt like negativity bias. I mean, that's kind of something we can't even help as human beings. For some reason, we do tend to fixate on the negative more so than we do the positive, even if they're happening in like equal measure. Like we can all remember some really embarrassing moment from years ago that, trust me, today no one cares about or remembers, but you can barely remember like some great thing that happened even like last week, or it's not as prominent in your mind, and we're just wired that way for some reason. But in those moments, like you said, it's important to remember that that was just a passing moment in time. Most people have already forgotten about it. The world has moved on, the world has changed, you've changed, it's a new day, and we can leave those things behind in the past, and also remember that one bad event doesn't mean that nothing good will ever happen again.
I like that. And another thing that I say to myself all the time is, like, number one, it's never as important as you think it is, and number two, no one cares. Respectively speaking, like, you're not as important as what you might think you are, and that frees a big burden from you, because it's like you said, they're not going to remember what you done 10 years ago, and even if they did, they'll probably laugh at it jokingly, like, oh, they made that mistake, or say if it's like an embarrassing moment, like, oh, they tripped up, like, it might come to their mind, but then they're moving on to the next thought. They'll probably think about their own embarrassing moments in time, and you know what I mean, like, everyone's just in their own cycles of like, the embarrassment that they face. But it's like, when you can break out of that, it's like, now the world opens up. The world opens up to the future and the present of what is happening now. And I think that's so important, to tune into what's happening now, not what happened. And to a certain degree, not even what is going to happen, just what is happening now. That's another thing that I like to do, is just like get into the senses. I say, like, when my mind is toxic in the sense of I can't live there because it's just too much going on right now, I get into the body. So escape to mind to get in the body. So what do? I look for a healthy outlet. So it could be exercise. I know you do music. Get into the body so that you're not just overthinking, and it's like a form of release at the same time. And that's another thing that I wanted to say. Letting go isn't avoiding. Letting go is doing the best you can with what you have to process what has happened and moving forward. So it's like, you're just hopefully going to get to a space where it's not that you're just avoiding all these thoughts and pushing it to the back of your mind. It's, you'll get to the place where you have the thought and you're okay with it. Like, you're just like, okay, that happened, what's next? And then just moving forward from there. Yeah,
I like that. And I'm thinking now that obviously there are some things that some people might deem to be unforgivable. Like, maybe something's happened, or you've been through something that's so awful, like it's just some terrible thing that you truly don't believe you can ever forgive somebody for. And I think in moments like that, it's hard, because on the one hand, everything that we've just said about forgiveness is true. Letting things go is good for you, and it releases you from the burden of carrying the weight of some terrible thing that happened a long time ago. But also, I think it can get complicated when it's something that you deem to be unforgivable, because then it's almost like letting that person off the hook feels like an injustice.
Yeah, and a betrayal to yourself.
And a betrayal to yourself, and a lowering of standards of sorts. Like, to an extent, it can feel like it becomes a lot bigger than just, oh, this person's wronged me and I need to forgive them. It's like some kind of cosmic problem that you think you're upholding by holding on to that grudge or those negative feelings, because you feel like if you let them go, then that person now has received something that they don't deserve from you and from the world, as if they deserve your anger towards them. But ultimately, that's just not true. And it hurts and it's hard to even hear and know that, but ultimately that's not true. And the truth is that vindication for any wrongdoing that somebody has done to you will not come from allowing what that person has done to eat you alive every day. It won't, because again, they're out, they're living their life, they're doing whatever they've done, and they've hurt you, yes, or they've done whatever they've done, or they've destroyed what they have destroyed, but hating them for it will never bring back the thing that they destroyed or restore you to the state that you were in before they hurt you. So the only thing that you can do now is move forward, and the only way to go is up, and the only thing to aspire to is progression, because truthfully, staying in that broken place will only keep you broken, and it will only keep you down, and that person will never feel the repercussions of whatever feelings you're feeling or stewing over inside. All that can happen to them is life and the events that they'll go through and the other people that they'll meet and come across, which is why, as a believer, the thing that I would resort to and would advise also is prayer. Prayer and meditation.
Give it to God.
Give it to God. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up to something higher than you. Give it up to someone who can handle it, because we can't. In those moments where you really, really can't find it in you to forgive, give up the burden. Give it to God and pray for yourself to be able to get through and heal, and also pray for that person to receive a revelation of what they've done and hopefully move forward trying to be better in life.
That was beautiful, and I know that impacted someone.
Amen.
And what I want to say is, I was going to speak about God as well. I was like, we can't miss the big man out of this one. When you try and bear that weight on your own, it's not possible, because sometimes the weight is just too much, and the weights might just be piling themselves on top of each other to the point where you just collapse, and then it's like you can't even move forward. You can't move at all because you're just burdened. But as it says in the word, and I'm paraphrasing, but Jesus was doing a sermon, and he said, all you that are heavy laden, come to me, for I will lift your burdens, because my yoke is light and my burden is not heavy. Come to Jesus. Like, literally, even if you're not a believer right now, like, if you've got this weight on yourself, cry out to God. Cry out to God. Say, I've heard this person, these people speak about you, God, and they say that you can lift my burden. Lift my burden.
Amen.
And he will lift your burden. He will lift your burden. When you test God, he will answer. Do you know what I mean? So I'd say that, number one. But number two thing I'd say is obviously, we have an understanding. We have an understanding and an appreciation for those people that have had terrible things that have happened to them. We're not just saying, message your abuser or thank you or something crazy. Like, it's nothing like that. But as you said, it's for yourself. It's for yourself. And what I've realized is forgiveness is a commitment. You don't do it because it feels good. You do it because you want to be that person that has that love in your heart. You don't want to be the person that is bound by these feelings. And that is why you forgive. It's like objective based. It's not feelings based. And then when you have that type of mindset, you're going to move forward. And that's another thing I would say, to touch on the point about just what I said in the preamble. I personally don't believe that you have to openly forgive them. I don't believe in that per se. Obviously, it's context to context, like situation to situation. But I don't think you have to go out your way to let them know that you've forgiven them. They don't deserve that per se. You don't owe that to them. But in your heart, to yourself, you deserve the forgiveness. Like, you deserve to receive that. Like, you deserve to release it, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So that's what I was saying.
No, I agree. And I like that. That forgiveness is a commitment. It's a commitment. It's not a feeling, it's not an emotion, it's not something that because it's so true. Sometimes you can't actually find it in you per se, like, to forgive, but just having the knowledge that that is good. And I like the word commitment, because that implies that you're working on it on a regular basis, and it's something that you're trying to do every day. Like really, like whenever you maybe think of that individual or that event or whatever happened, you just actively in your mind say to yourself, I've forgiven them.
You might do it like
yeah, exactly.
like clenches. Oh, I've
Exactly.
forgiven them.
Even when like that anger's spiking up, literally just be like, you're forgiven. Like literally whatever, you are forgiven. And that's such a good perspective, because so many people are probably struggling with like feelings of like disdain and hatred, maybe even like toward people that they can't forgive. But just having in mind that actually it's a mental state, like it's a decision. Actively commit to forgiving someone and train yourself over time to be able to do it, and you'll get better at it. I guess like I would go as far as saying you can work it out like a muscle, honestly. Like every opportunity that arises where you are, whenever you're given the opportunity to forgive, just forgive. And like the more you do it, you'll just get better. Like if you can forgive the little things, and then it'll build up and build up and build up. Eventually somebody will just completely screw you over one day, and it'll be like, you know what? I forgive you, not because of you. And I like what you said again, that it's not necessary to like go out of your way to go up to that person. Like you said, you don't need to message your abuser and be like, hey, everything's cool.
Love you, bro.
Yeah, like you don't need to do that. Or the person that like did something terrible to you and be like, you know what? But it doesn't matter. But in your heart, in your secret place, in your quiet moments, like to have that person not be weighing down on yourself, like to just release yourself from the burden of carrying that weight around. That's what really counts. Because at the end of the day, like we said, maybe they don't deserve it. Maybe they genuinely don't. And I mean, that's a rabbit hole in itself, because who's flawless enough to really believe that nobody deserves forgiveness? Like, as someone who's been forgiven many, many times and undoubtedly will go on to be forgiven many more, I appreciate forgiveness.
Amen.
And I will always believe to a certain degree that people really do deserve it. But in those times where it feels like they don't, to just know that it's not about them, it's actually about me in this instance. And for that reason, I'm going to release them.
Wow. There's a few things that I want to say. I'm just going to kind of speed through them. What I like to do is put myself in their shoes. Again, very situation to situation, but for like more, annoyances, like someone's annoyed me, like they've done this or done that. Like I just put myself in their shoes. I think in the last pod we done, I was saying how the example about when I'm driving and someone beeps at me and I'm like, oh, they might have just had a bad day. Like just putting myself in their perspective of what could be. And then you realize that you don't know what the situation is, so it allows room for the forgiveness. Cool. Number 2 thing I was going to say is about letting go. Another thing, find a healthy outlet, because sometimes people, like they have the breakup, like the girlfriend cheated on them, the boyfriend cheated on them, and then they're like, I'm going to the gym every day. I'm going to prove to them, I'm going to show them what they're missing out. And then it just turns into a negative obsession. And it's like, that's not it either. Find yourself in a place where, you're working on yourself, but you're not working on yourself for their sake. Again, it's like you take the power back from them because they had that power over you. You take it back by just working on yourself genuinely and just with an authenticity. You're not doing it for them at all. You're doing it for yourself. It's about self. And, some ways, again, healthy ways, like exercise is such a good way, like getting into the body, even like sign up to kickboxing, go boxing. Like if you have some anger and you want to punch somebody, like do it like in a healthy way, and even then you'll meet some people, and do you know what I mean, it'll be good time. And even just punching a punching bag, like I was saying to you not long ago, like I'm literally gonna buy a punching bag, not just because I want to like lash out my anger, but
it's got to go somewhere.
It's got, do you know what I mean, just in those times of frustration, like, I'm just gonna hit this bag, like then you feel a lot better after. I'll go for the run or whatever it is, like just it's like the anger that you feel in your mind, you allow to be expressed through your body. And that's productive, that's healthy.
In context, in the right context, and with the right motivation, because someone's going to take that and go punch up someone that they don't like. That they don't like right now. So be like, he told me to release the anger from my body. And go like attack around a person in the street. But side note quickly, this is irrelevant, but that's just reminded me. Do you remember when that there was like this famous guy who like attacked a random black guy or something, or he like beat up some black guy, and then when they asked him like why he did it, he said something like his daughter's ex-boyfriend was black and cheated on her or something.
I ain't heard that one.
Okay. Maybe we can find the news story somewhere. That's definitely like not exactly what happened, but it's just because of what you just said. I was like, because
yeah.
it was that same train of thought. He was like, wow,
Yeah.
someone's getting it. But with the right motivation,
Yes.
and in context, find a healthy outlet and lay into whatever that thing is and let go of whatever you need to let go of. Because when you were speaking about your examples, you gave two of the same examples, but you explained them in different ways. So you said that, you know, the person who's just gone through a breakup and wants to go to the gym to get a good body to get back at their ex, that's a negative obsession. But the person who goes to the gym because they're angry, that's a positive obsession. So you gave the same example twice, but then gave it two different nuances. Yeah. So just to break that down as well, like, it's about the motivation. Why are you doing it? Like he said, that first example, it's a revenge plot. It's a revenge scheme. It's not about self-improvement or clearing the mind. It's about getting back at person. So ultimately, that's not forgiveness and that's not a healing process. That's just finding another way to hurt someone that hurt you. But if you're going into it like, for example, with the kickboxing and your sole intention is just to relieve stress and like release some extra energy, and it has nothing to do with another person, and it is about you and just moving forward into a healthier place from where you're at, then that is what makes it healthy. It's not just the action in and of itself, because we can do the right thing for the wrong reasons, but you want to be doing the right thing for the right reasons. So analyze that motivation as well and make sure that it is about yourself and healing and moving to a better place within yourself to forgive that person or move past that thing.
Amen. And we've got 2 more minutes till we need to finish up, but I want to really quickly speak about forgiving yourself, because some people like they've forgiven the world, but they haven't forgiven themselves. God has forgiven them, but they've condemned themselves. And it's like, that old version of yourself, allow that old version to be that old version of yourself, because there's a new version that you're trying to become. But when you don't forgive yourself for the past mistakes, you get trapped in that old version of yourself. As we spoke about it on the previous podcast, we spoke about getting trapped in an old version of yourself. That's also by yourself, not just the world, it's by yourself. So when you forgive yourself by just knowing that, you know, with the situation that you had, you made the best decision possible that you thought was right. I made a mistake. I'm now not going to make that same mistake. Boom. And then you move forward.
Amen.
Amen. Okay.
I don't have anything to add to that. No, it's a good place to end. It's true. We always forget. It's probably the most important thing to be able to do, is really forgive yourself. Because if you can't forgive yourself, how can you forgive anybody else?
So yeah, thank you people for listening, and make sure you're leaving a comment with a topic that you want us to speak about. So yeah, thank you for listening. My socials will be in the description. I go live on TikTok preaching the gospel every Wednesday, every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. GMT. So make sure you're tuned in for that. Thank you. Stay blessed, stay thankful, and peace.